NXT, NXT, NXT,
NXT.
NXT.
This right here, this is
NXT.
All they hear is a pounding in their chest. That's not a heartbeat. It's opportunity knocking. The roar of the crowd. Stop your feet to the ground. Give it all to me now. 'Cause it calls for me. Awake to the sound of the screams getting loud. Give it all to me now.
What is up, wrestling fans? It's me. It's STUBB. Why? Because I'm the man, the myth, the legend, the mighty minion himself, Stubby. And I am joined at Kayfabe Studios by my colleague. He is Glorious Steve Vacio. Long time no talk. How you doing, brother?
Hey man, doing good. I just want to apologize to all of our fans about not getting that episode out last week. But this is going to be going to make up for that and get a good show in today.
We can actually say sorry to all those fans by name because there's only like 10 of them. But we still appreciate you guys.
I'm sorry, Roger.
Hey, I didn't tell you this, and I haven't told Savvo yet, but I actually left a voicemail for Edge and Christian on their podcast.
Oh man, that's awesome.
To see if they'll cut a promo for our show. So
I don't know how likely that is, but that would be cool.
yeah, I mean, they give you that voicemail to call them and tell them whatever you want. So I figured I called them and said that we have a podcast of our own, the Savvo and Stubby Show. We're on Spreaker. We're on Spreaker just like them, but don't worry, we won't take their fan base.
Is there a show on Spreaker?
Yeah, but like an ass clown, I left the voicemail, asked them if they can cut a promo for us, and then I hung up. And then I had to call right back and introduce myself a second time to let them know that I forgot to give them my phone number. So, yeah, classic jabroni move right there. On the plus side, because we were gone for a whole week, this week's NXT was actually nothing but promos with a couple squash matches. So we are going to touch base on last week's NXT. We'll touch base a little bit on what was actually important about this NXT this week. And then we'll kind of skip ahead or look ahead to NXT TakeOver in Chicago. So anything you want to add in before we do this? Because I know you've been hesitant about doing the show. I don't know if you got cold feet, if you realize this is kind of like tanked right now, or are you really just hyped up and just haven't been in the mood?
Yeah, man. It's actually no. I'm still excited about the show. It's just more personal stuff going on where I've been distracted from it. But I'm still believing it. Still want to keep it going. And as far as NXT goes, I'm right there with you. This week was, not the most exciting. I guess it's good build up for TakeOver, but not too much happened. So I think it's going to be good too.
Well, it's hard too because after that, the shake up, and then after pulling up half the talents from last year's WrestleMania. And the year before that, it's just they haven't been able to get the same level caliber of talent that they had during the Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins era. And I don't know if it's something on the creative side or if there's they just happen to hit that group that just happened to be a diamond in the rough, and we'll never see something like that ever again.
Yeah, it seems as though those were, of course, those were indie guys that were already really good that they got. It seems what they have right now is they have a lot of veterans, or at least a couple veterans now that are really good, but still need some work. They don't have, such as Bobby Roode. I think eventually he'll get moved up and he'll hopefully does well on the main roster, but. It is getting kind of thin. I don't think they should move anyone else up right now until they build their roster back up.
I think Bobby Roode's able to go now, honestly. I don't know if they have a storyline put in place, but he's kind of sticks out like a sore thumb in NXT. Like he's not supposed to be there. But my notes say NXT May 3rd at Full Sail University, even though today is May 10th. Or 11th, sorry. So we're a whole week off, so I'm not going to try to hide it and say We did the show last week. The opening graphic was Hideo Itami versus Kona Reeves. I wasn't too hyped about this match because as of right now, Kona Reeves kind of strikes me as like a artificial Rock, like a Rocky Maivia early stages of his career. And it's almost like they typecast all Samoans or all Hawaiian people like that, where he's got this like chip on his shoulder, and he's got that, you can tell he's got that island in him. But Hideo Itami doesn't strike me as like star power talent like they're trying to push him either. What's your take?
You know, my take on Kona Reeves is, you know, the first time I seen him, I believe, was against Aleister Black. And, you know, I immediately liked him. But, you know, it just, at this point, it just seems like, and I hate to throw this term out there so much. I know there's probably a better term than just jobber, because that's such a generic term. But, that, you know, that's what he's doing right now. He's being used to build up other talent, to make other guys look good. Which
is not necessarily a bad thing, because if you look at people like Dolph Ziggler, Sami Zayn, they're a higher caliber superstar jobber, but they have that equity built up so that they can take these losses and it really not hurt them. Dolph Ziggler's a little bit of a different monster altogether, because he's been around way too long, and they've done gimmicks with him that seem to be recycled over and over again. And I know if they put him in the right situation, his career can be salvageable, but as of right now, it looks very bleak.
What's your opinion on them bringing in guys like televised like this as jobbers? Of course, you know, when you first start out when you're green, you're going to lose some matches. But do you think it really it sets them back a whole lot on their momentum versus someone like Aleister Black when they're introducing him? They're introducing him on this massive win streak, giving him a push out the gate, versus somebody like Kona Reeves that, you know, we're introduced to him as a jobber, someone who's losing and not even looking good in his losses. Do you think that's detrimental?
I would say so at first, but the more I thought about it, the more psychology put into it. Kona Reeves is probably very, very big on the house shows for NXT, and Triple H sees something in him that wants to get him a little bit of television time to see how he can handle, you know, calling their spots on live, or recorded in this aspect, but supposed live TV. And even though it comes off as a squash match, it gives Kona Reeves that experience. And because he doesn't have a character build yet, because if you look at him, he doesn't have really a gimmick. He's just Kona Reeves. So they use him as kind of like whenever you play a video game, like a wrestling game, you create your own wrestler. You get that blank format where he doesn't really have anything on him. You kind of have to build him up. Well, I think they're giving Kona Reeves a blank character, kind of like they did with Patrick Clark, to see how he reacts on these recordings. And then based on his match style, how long he can go, how clean his transitions are and everything, that's when they bring him back, you know, 6-8 a year down the line as an actual character. Because if you look at it now, and I'll talk about it later on, but the Velveteen Dream is actually Patrick Clark. He initially was on Tough Enough, and I think they temporarily gave him a contract or a call-up, and he didn't do so great. He didn't win Tough Enough, but he didn't do so great. He disappeared for a while, came back. I think he went back to the Performance Center and built up his character a little bit more, but he still couldn't get over on NXT. So I think now that they've given him a couple of these, like, squash matches, they're bringing him back as the Velveteen Dream, which is supposed to be like a knockoff of Prince.
What do you think about this gimmick? And I know there's a lot of different takes on it, but kind of this, what's a good way to say it? Androgynous? Like, I'm trying to think of a way to say gay.
Yeah, no,
but not in a negative way, but think of people like
flamboyant,
like Tyler Breeze and flamboyant. That's a good way to put it. Like Fandango and Tyler Breeze.
I think
it's that whole gimmick. Do you think it's ever going to be successful?
I think if it's done right, because you know, Goldust was the perfect example of this androgynous character. The problem with that, and I listened to it on I want to say it was Chris Jericho's podcast, or it might have even been Jim Ross's. The trick about doing these androgynous characters, I don't know if you remember the manager for Chuck and Billy on WWE back in the Attitude Era. He was a hairdresser. He came off very flamboyant. He wasn't actually gay. But I think as long as you don't give the assumption that he actually, like, if he comes out and says he's gay, the character can work. Because you look at Goldust, they never actually said Goldust liked women or men. And that gimmick was very touchy, no pun intended, in the 90s and the early 2000s with Roddy Piper and so forth. But Goldust is still relevant today. But you look at people like I can't remember his name, Aaron Rex over in Impact, where where he kind of had that a more obvious character that he might have been like a crossdresser or transgender. It wasn't on the fence. It was clear cut what he was doing, and the character failed. So. Someone like Patrick Clark, if you actually look at him, he kind of has those features that he can actually pass as androgynous. But I don't think that's the route they're going with the Velveteen Dream. I think he's more of like a Prince character. And I think WWE's testing this in this market because of the fact that the LGBT movement's so big right now. And they figure they could probably touch into that fan base, which is a cheap way of marketing, but they don't steer away from that stuff.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. At least they're being inclusive. I think it'd be good to, to kind of spread the WWE away from just what people think about, your general wrestling fan is kind of just like closed-minded redneck. And, we got some of those, but we got wrestling fans from all walks of lives.
Problem is WWE wants its cake and eat it too. They want to have good storylines, but they also want to sell product. And the only way to sell product is to push characters that are larger than life. And they're doing it in a way now where it's all gimmicks and it's not actual wrestling. Like we've said in previous shows, the wins and losses don't matter anymore. They've even recycled the title so many times that it's irrelevant who actually has it. I was talking to Savvo yesterday about this. You've got the Universal title in WWE on Monday Night Raw that has not been defended since, or hasn't been used since WrestleMania. And now you have the Heavyweight Championship over in SmackDown held by Randy Orton that hasn't been defended since WrestleMania. So you've got two titles, the two main titles, that are not even being defended. They hold no relevance right now. To the point where
I didn't. I didn't realize that. Even though Randy's been wrestling, he hasn't defended it since he's got it.
Exactly.
That House of Horrors technically wasn't a defense.
And the way they distract you with that is they put out some of this bogus stuff, and they're even trying to push Dean Ambrose with the Intercontinental title as making that a more relevant title. Same way that they're doing Kevin Owens with the United States title. They're doing these smoke and mirrors to pull us away from the fact that these titles are not being defended. But these are rules that they put in place that, it has to be defended after 30 days. And if you've got a good writing team in place, then you can easily have these guys show up on Raw and SmackDown with the threat that they have to defend it. And, Brock sits there and says, if somebody wants to take it from me, I want to see him try. And you build up the whole Braun Strowman angle from there. With Randy Orton, they tried to do it sort of with Jinder Mahal stealing it, but he only stole it for a week. So it worked.
I just got this crazy idea. In the UFC, when a champion is hurt, depending on how long he's hurt or when he's out and he can't compete, of course after like 2 years, I think they strip him, something like that. But what they do when the main title can't be defended is they have an interim title, and what that does is that allows them to have title matches and have a title keep going while the other person is injured. And then generally what it is it's really just a spot holder for that person who has an interim title, because as soon as the actual champion comes back, they always have to wrestle. They always have to fight them to unify the belt. And I know that's, the WWE is not the UFC. And to some people that sounds stupid, but in some way, that's actually a good way to, keep a champion relevant while he's not going to be wrestling while he's out, and give everyone else a chance to still keep the title going,
Yeah, see, but the thing is, they look at Brock Lesnar and they figure he's relevant no matter what. Doesn't matter if he's out a year, doesn't matter if he's out a week. Him coming back at any point is supposed to be the money grabber. It's supposed to be the difference maker. So they can justify having him out for however long he wants to be out, and the fans kind of just have to deal with it.
Yeah, that one, Brock Lesnar basically has him by the balls. He has all the bargaining power there because he's the star. But with Randy Orton, the whole thing is a mess. Like, I don't know why they decided to make him champion in the first place. And then now all this just weird messing up his Wyatt feud in the middle of it, right? In my opinion, when it got hot, they did a shake-up, and it completely took all the heat away from it, destroyed it. And, this is just weird. The Jinder Mahal angle, I think, I like it, but it could have been versus anybody. Like, it could have been anyone besides Randy Orton. My point is, Randy Orton isn't really shining right now. He's just there,
Well, let's dial it back to NXT, but before I do that...
whoa, we got way off topic.
Yeah, in answer to your Brock Lesnar thing, though, he doesn't have as much bargaining as he once had. Ever since he got suspended from UFC or got dropped from UFC, he doesn't have that luxury of going back and forth between the two. He's that's why his dates are a little more open than they were before with WWE, simply because now WWE kind of has the sway on things, whether or not, he stays with the company or not. And of course, they're going to keep him simply because he draws money. But at some point, it's going to become irrelevant to WWE, and they will cut him free. But back to NXT, we had a graphic come up for a battle royal for the number one contendership for Asuka's title. That comes on later in the night, and I'll go more into detail about that. One thing I can say about that really upset me is that it was a 15-woman battle royal. I don't believe the graphic actually showed that. And out of those 15 women, they only announced 8 of them on TV, which, like I told you before, whenever you have Aleister Black going against someone, they don't tell you who it is. You might as well just consider it a squash match, because if they don't have the importance to actually say the person's name, they're obviously not going to be a main factor. So to have 15 women and only 7 of those names get called out lets me know that those are going to be the remaining 7 that they kind of pull from, and that the other 8 were just fillers.
Exactly.
We had Sanity actually start off the show. Big Killian Dane. This guy is a beast. And I don't know if it's because he's actually big, or if it's the fact that he's just hairy and oily looking. He reminds me of very Albert-esque from TNA, or Testin Albert.
Yeah.
He looks a lot like him. Albert was a very hairy guy too. But very intimidating guy. He can do this whole Viking role if he really wanted to.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool when they had him in the Andre the Giant Battle Royale. I thought that was really good, and I feel like he might even be ready for a call-up. But, yeah, he actually impressed me. And I love his finishes. Finishes badass. Of course, people criticize it because, he stole it from Kenny Omega. But, moves get recycled, so you can't really...
Oh, yeah, you look at the super kick. According to everyone else, the Young Bucks kind of take reign on that, but Shawn Michaels has been doing it for years. But we had Killian Dane and Eric Young come out as part of Sanity. The other 2, Nikki Cross, and I can't remember the other guy's name. His name slips my brain right now. But they come down ringside to verse Danny Burch, the guy that I said looks a lot like Jason Statham. Like an ugly stepbrother.
Yeah.
both these guys have brutal movesets. I mean, if they really wanted to make it a physical match, they really could. And Birch, hands down, is probably one of the best sellers when it comes to moves in NXT right now. But this was a short match. Dane gets the win in 2 minutes and 53 seconds. He hits that ulcer plantation that you're talking about. That driver.
What does he call it?
I didn't catch the first word. He just called me out on it. I know it's something plantation. I want to say it's ulcer plantation.
No, I believe you're correct. It's something like that. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, and he executes it well. I mean, like you said, as long as you're not in the same company, I don't think it's stealing the moves. I mean, you look at DDP's Diamond Cutter is no different than Randy Orton's RKO, but DDP was WCW, Orton's WWE. So as long as you're not in the same company, then I see no harm in it, unless you ask permission from that wrestler.
Yeah, I'm sure he didn't ask permission, but at the same time, like, yeah, and I believe I remember somebody pointing out that they're slightly different, like a very, very small variation, which I think if you're going to borrow from someone's move, it is nice to change it a little bit, so it's not the exact, like, obvious ripoff.
Yeah, you don't want to pull you don't want to pull a Vanilla Ice and take the
change one note.
Yeah, under pressure. So then we catch a movie spot for the resurrection of Gavin Stone with the guy I just spoke of, Shawn Michaels, playing the role of, I believe he's a janitor. I haven't really watched it. I'm not a religious guy. I'm actually atheist, so the fact that it's a movie based on Jesus and everything.
Oh, is it a God movie?
Yeah, it's a God movie. So, I mean, but I'm pretty sure it's good. WWE's got their hands on it, but it's one of those, like, Lifetime movies. I know it's about a troublemaker who kind of, like, makes fun of the whole God thing and then, I guess, finds himself and refines.
Oh, that sounds terrible, but I'd have to watch it before I judge it. There's this other WWE movie that they're promoting that I really wanted to see, but it didn't play in our area. It was called Pulse. Or, not Pulse, it was called something like that. Slate. It's called Slate. It was about that little that little black magic kid.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, back on topic.
All right, so we had a vignette for the Velveteen Dream. Like I said, this is going to be Patrick Clark. They're just repackaging him because I think they saw what they were looking for on his videotapings or show tapings, and they want to give him a push, but I don't think they want to push him hard enough because I think he still has some building. But they probably had him in promo class, cutting different promos, and this was probably one of his strong suits. So they figured they'd at least give it a shot. Shortly after that, we had a tag team match, which was Heavy Machinery. These guys combined equal 650 pounds. You got Tucker Knight and Otis Dozervich, which ironically his last name is Dozer, which is funny because they're supposed to be like these trucks, Heavy Machinery. But the ironic part is they fought against a tag team called, by the names of Ricardo Watts and Hector Kunzman. These guys combined probably weighed about 310 pounds, maybe 320. That was both of their weights.
One of them.
Yeah, as one of it was either Tucker or Otis weighed just that amount by himself. So I mean, it was obvious it was going to be a squash match, and I don't know what WWE pays these guys. I know they're local talents in the Florida area, but what kind of a paycheck would you be willing to take to be on recorded TV to get smashed by these big ass guys? Would you do it?
Yeah, to just get your ass handed to you.
Oh yeah,
I would do it. I would totally do it. You know, to get the experience and also money. But man, that actually looked like it hurt. They had a spot there at the end where he held up both of them, and then he jumped on him from behind and squished him.
Yeah,
that looked like it actually hurt.
That's their finishing move. But no, okay, so put it into context. They're the equivalent of you versus Brock Lesnar. Now, if someone told you, we'll pay you $30,000 for 4 minutes in the ring with Brock Lesnar, and he's going to go balls to the wall, unleash on you.
Absolutely. You can suplex me for 4 minutes. I don't care. I do it.
I would sign up for it too, but I don't think I'd get past the first suplex. I think he'd drop me on the stack of dime I call a neck, and it'd be over. That'd be it. It's done. They'd have to scrape me off the mat. It's like that's like Ellsworth, dude. We're probably about the same size. I keep thinking he's like a scrawny guy, but I put into consideration that we're probably about the same weight, same height. So and we got the same chin. It's even funnier.
I think you could take Ellsworth.
What's funny about this match too is the Dozovich Otis looks a lot like, he reminds me of Tommy Boy meets a Ninja Turtle without the mask. He's just very turtle shaped, and he does this weird he does a weird Popeye thing with his bottom lip, like he's trying to blow his hair up in the air.
Yeah, that boy ain't got no neck.
Yeah, but this match lasted 1:35 seconds. These guys cutting a promo at the end, I thought it was probably one of the worst tag team promos I have ever heard. Although,
wow, really?
Savvos loves the stakes and weights thing that he says. But
yeah, I actually was pretty impressed because it was Dozer, right? Dozer's the one who talked.
Yeah, no, that was Tucker Knight was the one that talked. Dozer's the one that kept saying steak and weights and making weird noises.
Yeah, yeah, making weird noises. Looked like he was gonna have a heart attack. Yeah, Tucker Knight was actually pretty good on the mic in my opinion, and he almost reminded me of Big Cass the way that he talked. I know it's a weird thing to say, but like his voice was kind of similar to Cass. And I thought it was decent. You know, if you want to hear a bad tag team promo, you gotta DIY cut a promo. They're pretty rough.
It's funny because you said that it sounds like Big Cass. Big Cass reminds me of Peter Griffin. Have you ever listened to him talk?
Yeah,
he's like a cross between. It's like a cross between Joe Swanson and Peter Griffin. It's actually pretty funny. But at the end of this whole promo, they call out AOP, the Authors of Pain, which actually begs me to ask you: do you feel like tag teams such as DIY or TM61 actually have a place in NXT's tag division now that you have these full size guys like this?
I think absolutely, because you've talked about this before. When it's a smaller guy going up against bigger guys, they usually have the speed advantage, and I think that's what DIY has going for them against the two other tag teams. I think are their main their biggest threats would be Heavy Machinery and Authors of Pain, and both those groups of guys are huge. So I think they have a shot. I think they need to do something with DIY, soon, because for me they've been the top tag team in NXT, but they're starting to somewhat fade out in my opinion.
It's funny you say that because that was actually going to be my next thing. I think DIY is actually getting the push for the title. The title's at TakeOver in Chicago. Because on this recent episode of NXT, it was a stipulation that was put in place that it's going to be a ladder match for the titles, Authors of Pain versus DIY. And I think a stipulation match like that is your only way of justifying a small team to beat a powerhouse team like that. There has to be some kind of gimmick in between, not a clean match.
Gotcha.
But after the promo ended, we were taken backstage with no audio of Bobby Roode counseling Keanu Reeves. I almost called him Keanu Reeves. And from the looks of it, it sounded like he was telling him how to take on Hideo, to kind of coach him through the victory. The interesting side of this sounds like Fozzy is going to be the official theme for TakeOver Chicago, and I can say I'm a listener of Jericho's podcast, Talk is Jericho, on the Podcast One network, and his new single Judas actually dropped last week on May 4th on his show, but it went nationwide on May 5th on Cinco de Mayo, And the song isn't bad. It's very catchy, but in my opinion, and I'm sorry, Jericho, for saying this, you just don't have the vocal power. And I know I'm saying it like Chris Jericho actually listens to this podcast, especially.
Hey, man, make it happen.
Hey, it's true, and that would suck if I'm burning bridges left and right. So, Edge and Christian, if you're listening, we love you guys. My stepdad thinks that you suck as wrestlers, but I think you guys should still come back. It's a shame that you guys had to retire so soon.
You know, I listened to the song, and I like all kinds of music. I listen to that kind of rock music. I guess people would call it like new metal or whatever.
Yeah, it's catchy.
But, what was that?
It's catchy. It's just his vocal talents is just not strong enough for that lead singer role.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was super catchy, and his band is really good. Like the guitar work and all that in the background, it was really good. But his vocals, like you said, they're not the strongest. But the lyrics are really good, and I liked it surprisingly a lot more than I thought I would. But if you see the music video, it's kind of awkward, but I thought it was overall it's a pretty good song.
Well, he needs to stick to that DDP yoga a little bit stronger. The video was actually shot at DDP's studios.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was telling me that DDP kind of gave him the space to do the music video. But back to the show, we had an interview, and this is probably the interview you're talking about. We had DIY doing an interview with Kayla, and they were in some kind of rhyme session, which I really didn't like. They come off as a tag team that can cut promos for the most part, but sometimes they just try a little too hard, and I think this was that time. But according to you, you're not a big fan of DIY's talking abilities. Did you have any problems with this promo?
I love these guys. In the ring, they're amazing. They're really, I think they're going to do great things. But they already do great things. They're already, NXT tag champions. I think they can make it on the main roster eventually. But, they're, in my opinion, their promo skills are, I don't know. It's just, they're not the best on the mic. But, thankfully that's what NXT is for. And I'm glad, in a way I'm glad, but in a way I don't like it. I don't know how I feel about it. They're starting to do a lot more promos on NXT, which I always felt like they kind of needed because that's what it's for. You're helping build these guys up. You're getting them some practice. So if you're getting them practice in the ring, you also want to get them some practice on the mic. So in a way, I think it's good to have these promos, but I don't think they necessarily need to air all of these promos because they're, in my opinion, not as much to drive the story forward as they are just to get these guys on the mic and get them some practice.
So I got a question for you then. With DIY in the current state and the current state that the division's going in right now, would you rather see them break up as individuals and have a little more feud here on NXT, or would you like to see them carry over the tag team aspect to the main roster?
I would keep them as tag teams. Individually they're good. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think they competed as individuals in the Cruiserweight Classic.
They did, and Johnny Gargano got the win.
Okay, and individually they're really good, but I think as a tag team they really really work very well together. I think they should stay together.
All right, fair enough. We have I almost called him Keanu Reeves again. We had Keanu Reeves versus Hideo Itami. Again, I wasn't as hyped as I wanted to be for this match. Hideo just doesn't seem to come off as strong, and I think a lot of that has to do with Shinsuke having the spotlight for the last year and a half, 2 years there in NXT. And it's like, and I don't mean this in a racist way, but it's like taking a step down from one Asian to another Asian. And he just doesn't have that drive like he should, and injuries play a big role in that. Speaking of injuries, did you see the vicious scar on his left arm?
Yeah.
It looked like his doctors didn't sew him up right either, because under his armpit there's like it's a smaller gap than the other arm. But the match started off immediately by Keanu Reeves jumping Hideo Itami, and for some reason, I talked about this 2 weeks ago too, for some reason the sheep still loves to do that 2 sweet count whenever the ref hits the 2 count. But these guys, they had a couple good sets there, back and forth. Hideo really lays in his slaps. Slapped the shit out of God damn it, Kona Reeves. John Wick. There you go. But Hideo gets the win. He hits the GTS in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And I wanted to ask you, too, with NXT TakeOver being in Chicago next Sunday? No. Yeah, next Sunday. Do you think we're going to get some vicious chants to Hideo for taking CM Punk's move? Since technically that is in the company still.
Yeah, I think I make fun of it a lot because I think a lot of people are still ignorant to the fact that Punk actually borrowed that move from Itami. I believe. I apologize for not knowing more, but I believe he used to go by Kenta.
Yeah.
And that was his move. And I think a lot of people still don't know that. So I could imagine a lot of rednecks like, he stole CM Punk's move. He's using Punk's move.
I'm one of those rednecks, and that was actually a pretty good impersonation. Do that again.
That boy, that Chinese boy wants to come over here, come to our country, and start stealing our jobs, stealing our moves.
You gotta put more twang on it, man. I don't know what it is with NXT, but they seem to be a little late on their video packages. I noticed that the last couple weeks. We had the Roderick Strong Part 2 video package, which is supposed to give him that human element, but I like the first video set they had for him. This one made him a little too sensitive, and I think it took away from his character. Although we don't have a character put in place unless he's supposed to be that very sensitive guy.
They're doing it for Roderick Strong. I think one parter would have been good. But now they're doing it, seems like they're trying to do it for everybody because they kind of had like one of those for Ruby Riot this week where it's kind of like more personal look into it.
Right, and I put
wasn't as personal, but it was just, it was similar.
And I put in my notes WWE should be doing this more often because we're kind of out of the day of kayfabe, and I listened to Shane McMahon talk about that with Stone Cold, that the kayfabe era kind of is dead these days. Because back in the day, there wasn't a strong internet. You didn't have camera phones and security cameras everywhere. So you were able to carry on that kayfabe heel and babyface aspect a lot more easier. But now it's kind of like, it's just a show, and a lot of the fans know that. But when you do these behind-the-scenes things, you kind of get more of a feel of who these characters are. From, the rumors, some of the people that you would think are the biggest assholes are actually some of the biggest sweethearts. Like I've heard Braun Strowman's actually a really nice guy. And then people like Triple H who are just plain assholes that are out for themselves. But it's funny, I made a note here that Roderick is probably going to get the next big push. And later on the show we actually see him get a title shot or a number one contender spot. But he reminds me of Dean Malenko. I don't know if it's his look or if it's just his body language. I don't know if you remember Dean Malenko from WCW, the Iceman.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I definitely remember Dean Malenko. That dude was... I believe... I seen him more when he came over to the WWF, but I went back since and watched a lot of his videos, and that dude was very technical. Very technical.
We were then brought to a backstage with Bobby Roode and Regal. And it's funny because, like I said, I made the note that Roderick is probably going to get the next big push. And they're talking, and Roode's cutting a heel promo. And, of course, who walks into the back locker room? Roderick Strong. We had Bobby Roode and Roderick Strong kind of do a stare down. And then Regal announced that it's going to be Roderick Strong versus Hideo Itami next week, meaning this past Wednesday, for the number one contender spot. And for those that haven't watched it but just want kind of a spoiler alert, because now it's old news, Hideo Itami is the number one contender, so we're going to see Hideo versus Bobby Roode at NXT TakeOver Chicago.
I I really wish they wouldn't have done this match, or I wish they would have did it in a way where he didn't lose clean, because Roderick Strong, after they invested all that money in that video package, and he's been doing so well, I really felt like he could have been the next big contender, and even took the championship. But losing this match definitely, I think, kind of set him back. But NXT, now that I'm thinking about it, there's a couple good contenders right now. Like, they have Roderick Strong, Tommy. They also have Galloway, who's, I think he's going to be coming up for a title shot here pretty soon. And then another one, it seems as though they're giving a push to, that I think is a fantastic wrestler, is Cassius Ohno. So they got a pretty good title picture there.
And it's funny because I have the same sentiments. I think, why would you do the process of trying to get Roderick Strong over just to have him lose? I think this match could have waited. I think you could have easily had just Regal justify in his own means why someone was eligible for a number one contenders match. By doing this to Roderick, it kind of made me feel like they built him up just to knock him down. And the promo wasn't strong enough, or the video package wasn't strong enough for me to automatically be a believer in Roderick. So, backwards writing on that part.
You know what I would have done that would have made it a lot more believable? Is I would have had Bobby Roode interrupt the match. I would have had him come out there and, start beating the shit out of either both of them or Tommy, doing something like that, which makes it less of a clean win. And then they could have even transitioned that into a three-way match. But a triple threat match, I mean. But they didn't. They kind of just had the Tommy win, and I believe it's gonna set Roderick Strong back a little bit there.
Yep, I agree. This brought us to our Battle Royal match, and the biggest problem I had with the show was this match. Was
that the main event that week?
Yeah, and I'm proud that they're doing that. They're pushing the women talent, and I think this is simply because if you look on the Savvo and Stubby show page, I posted WWE's plans and scheduled dates for the women's division or the women's tournament coming up. And what better way to get the promotion on this than to have the women's match be the show closer, the main event.
Is there a quick question for you? Is this kind of a sentiment that, or have they mentioned anything about it? Or as far as a women's actually having like a women's show or like an entire women's division? Is that something like we're hoping for?
Yeah, no, it's something we're hoping for. It hasn't been announced yet, but it's almost clear that they're going that direction, because if you look at this Battle Royal, we had 15 women. 8 of these women we knew were on the roster, sort of, but we don't really see them because you got an hour show that you're televising. A lot of these are house shows that these women are getting these pushes for. But you cannot have 15 plus women on your roster and keep paying these people contracts to not get them on TV, not utilize them. So to have 15 plus women on NXT, have at least 8 to 10 on Raw and 8 to 10 on SmackDown, it almost makes sense just to have a women's show like 205 Live. You have a lot.
Yeah, and they don't have to take the women completely off the main shows, just like they still have cruiserweights on Raw. But to have them, a show in the back, to have a women's show, and I really think we're not the only ones who feel this way. I feel like a lot of people feel like they're wasting a lot of talent of these all these new girls they're bringing in, like Kimberly and Ruby Riott and all these really, really good wrestlers, and not to mention the nameless ones, like those other 8 girls who weren't announced. They had the perfect opportunity to start making tag teams like Billie Kay and Peyton Royce and having a women's tag. Have they ever done that before? Has that ever been done?
But to have like stables and
a women's tag division?
Not to my knowledge, but I don't know the history of WWE to the fullest.
Most likely, more likely in like the smaller, like independent organizations, or maybe like TNA or something like that.
No, I would think.
But, that would be groundbreaking. That would be amazing.
I think Shimmer, the organization where all these women initially came from, I wouldn't be surprised they have a women's tag division because I believe it's a women's only division or a women's only promotion. So it's not something that's exactly groundbreaking. I mean, you ask Triple H, he invented cruiserweights. Even though WCW and Impact's X division did it many years before. Just like if you ask the Wetback and Cracker, they always say Triple H. Thank you, Triple H, for inventing European wrestling or UK wrestling. But so I'm just gonna name off all 15 women because out of the first 7 that I name off, the other 8 were not announced. I actually had to listen to the whole match just to find out who they were. So the ones that were announced were Lacey Evans, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, Nikki Cross, Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, and Ember Moon. The remaining 8 were Victoria Gonzalez, which was the tall lady in the blue tights. You had Candice, Rachel Evers, Aaliyah, Sarah Bridges, Bianca Blair, Kimberly, Sonia, who once was another wrestler. I can't remember what they actually called her. But she has the same gimmick, just different name. I think they're trying to repackage her. All these women definitely can fit a role as a part of the women's division and part of a women's show, in my opinion. Because WWE doesn't just sign anybody to a contract. They will run you through rigorous training and then put you on some tapings to see how you fare. I mean, a lot of these people don't know that a lot of the talent that was on, or that's on the WWE roster now, were jobbers at one point. They were in training at, I can think of the OVW, or even in Florida, and they would bring them up to have them do a debut match. AJ Styles wrestled on Raw, I believe, or in WWE at one point, as kind of like a jobber. This was before he was anybody big.
Yeah, I think that was like in the early 2000s.
Yeah. And it's like, you kind of have to get that, and that's how they figure out how to brand you. Is they see how you are in the environment. They bring you back to the Performance Center. They run some more drills with you, and then they bring you back. The match overall was kind of predictable. It went about 17 minutes. The first 7 that I named off were the remaining 7 that were left. But then you had Billie Kay and Peyton Royce go out, and then you had Liv Morgan go out. And we were down... Or sorry, you had Peyton Royce, Billie Kay, Lacey Evans all go out. And it came down to Ruby Riott, Ember Moon, Liv Morgan, and Nikki Cross. Eventually, Liv Morgan was eliminated, and it brought us down to the final 4. Ember Moon, Ruby Riott, Nikki Cross.
And then that's when Asuka came out and started whooping everyone's ass.
Right, and the problem I have with this match is, since when can someone come in to interfere and it cost the whole match? I mean, we've seen people in the Royal... I mean, we had The Miz eliminate John Cena at the Royal Rumble, and the match still went on.
Yeah, that was stupid.
So, and I get it, you have to somehow get it across that it's going to be a triple threat match or a fatal 4, but there's got to be better ways to do it, and I just think that this was kind of done poorly.
So Ember Moon was injured, and I'm guessing she was injured when Asuka pushed her out the ring, and it looked really nasty. It looked like she really hit the guardrail pretty hard.
Oh yeah, she missed the corner, the turnbuckle altogether. She flew completely through the ring.
She's injured now, right?
Yeah, I don't know how much of it is work. I know, and again, this is on WWE. At one point, Braun Strowman's injury was actually a work. But I think he did, in fact, injure it and end up injuring his elbow on Raw. So...
Are we talking about Roman Reigns?
No. Braun Strowman actually injured his elbow for real. Initially...
Is this current, or did this happen a while back?
This was current, back at Payback. It was supposed to be fake that he tore his rotator cuff when he hit the ambulance door. But apparently he really did injure his elbow, so it's not a work, it's a shoot.
Oh, okay, actually, yeah, I don't know why, I completely forgot about that, but this past week when Kalisto called him out, his shoulder in a sling.
Yeah, he was selling a fake injury there for a while, but he actually really did hurt his elbow according to sources. But yeah, you have Asuka come out, interfere. So this led to Steven Regal coming out and letting Asuka know that it's in fact going to be a Fatal 4. And I wrote these notes down as I'm watching it, and I had a feeling that this was going to come down to it being a Fatal 4 match. But now it has been announced that Ember Moon's not going to be included in that pay-per-view. So it's going to be a triple threat match between Nikki Cross, Ruby Riott, and Asuka. And at this point, it can go any way. I would like to see Nikki Cross get the win and break Asuka's record, but I still don't think she's going to lose it yet.
Yeah, I'm over Asuka. She's great and all, but she's just had it too long. We need to shake it up, give her some sort of challenge, So I'd be fine if she lost it. I think she should have lost it to Ember Moon because that match against Ember Moon did amazing. That was her match, and basically Asuka won it through heel tactics, was able to hold on to it. But I think the time's coming. And if she wins, I think hopefully she ends up losing it back to Ember Moon.
Oh, she will. I think that's going to be the one that actually takes it from her. I bet you that was a last-minute booking where Asuka retained the title by the interference. Overall, it was a good TV taping. They oversold the injuries too much at the end. It was a very choppy ending at the end. But I had to say, I love Nikki Cross. I love her character. I love her in-ring abilities. And I see a big future for her. They most likely will stick her with somebody for a while before she goes solo. Because she doesn't have the strongest solo character.
Yeah, in my opinion, if they're smart, they'll call up Sanity together as a group. Because I think it's great. I love it. I see them staying in NXT for a while, but I think they'd be a really good stable on the main roster.
All right. So with that said, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up the show?
I guess not much. We can go quickly. We don't have to get into detail, but quickly what happened on. Unless of course you want to cover it more next week. When we get more time to review the tapes on what happened this week, because I kind of skimmed through it. I would like to, observe it more. But from what I've heard, there wasn't much there. A lot of promos and a couple splash matches, but nothing much. We basically covered the main match already, which was Itami versus Roderick Strong.
Yeah, there was nothing there that was the meat and potatoes that would actually affect the pay-per-view. But we will do a result show shortly after the pay-per-view. So if you're up to it, we'll do a NXT TakeOver result show.
It's this Sunday?
I believe. No, it's next Sunday.
Oh, man. What's going on? There's nothing going on this weekend. Okay.
Shame on you.
Man, I
Sorry, Miss Vacio.
I'm starting to, as I'm starting to want more content. I'm thinking about even considering watching 205 Live because I just want to watch wrestling.
Do you realize that you just said there was nothing going on this weekend, but it's Mother's Day?
I mean wrestling-wise.
All right, man.
I love you, Mom.
Well, as always, it's me, it's STUBB. Why? Because I'm the man, the myth, the legend, the mighty minion himself, Stubby. And he is...
Glorious Steve Vacio.
All right, brother. Stubby out.
All right, man.